What's going on, creators? Yeah, just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to talk a little bit again about just mental diets and really focusing your attention on the things you enjoy, the good, the things that bring you peace and joy, and all that kind of stuff, and getting out of these constant narrative loops of like worst case scenarios and, oh, what did you see this on the screen? Now we got to face an economic this, or now we got to face some variant over here, or, oh, now we got some rumors of war. It's this non-stop fear peddling business, and most of it which is just verifiably not even real. Most of it's just made up perspectives and propaganda at this point. But like as long as people, and this is coming from somebody who has been actively engaged with screens, so I'm not like sitting there from the outside like, oh, I mean, this is something I'm very guilty of doing, and so as someone who's guilty of these things, recognizing it though, and seeing how much of a spiral, it starts to put me in, tried to help others, and in turn, also help myself to unplug and really focus on this new life. I live, in a town, probably 10,000 people, 12,000 people, big enough for like a Walmart and another grocery store, fast food places. Basically, probably like the globalist vision of the future for everybody in the world is to have these corporations in town. And just it's funny because like when I go on vacation and stuff, I like to go to Florida, and you go to Florida and it's like really no different. It's like, oh, there's an Advanced Auto Store, there's a Napa, there's a McDonald's, there's all of these different places that are in my town too. I mean, it's probably in everybody's town at this point, where like all the mom and pops are just replaced by corporations and franchises and stuff. Not to say like there's something wrong with that, because it is convenient, to go to like an auto parts store that can ship things next day, and they got the inventory and the staffing and stuff like that. But on the other end, as like somebody who has like a local business, really wanting to, because you can see how much leverage that gives the community, if they got local businesses versus a lot of corporate, tied to New York or tied to LA or tied to, some major city where the mindset about life is different. And I think that's part of like maybe American programming, at least that I've experienced, is where it's like, oh, we know what's going on, and so it's reality, and so because it's based in science, it's like this is how everybody needs to perceive the world. Even though when you really take a step back and you start realizing that's like, I get to choose how I process and perceive events and the stories I'm telling myself about certain things, because we're all just telling ourselves stories in a lot of ways. If you start to become more and more present and still, you start, disconnecting yourself from the mental chatter, but at the same time looking at the mental chatter, especially if you're not in a state of fear really, but it's just more just mental, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, when it happens, that you're just sitting maybe at a red light and just telling yourself a story or a daydream about traffic, or, the town that you're in, or, oh, I wonder what that person's life is like. And you see, somebody driving around with a face mask on in their vehicle by themselves, and it's like, then you start telling yourself a story about what are they experiencing reality as. Some people just wear these face masks so much they forget they're even wearing them in some way, which is crazy to me because I find them so obnoxious and so uncomfortable, and just a detriment to just normal functioning of just breathing. I can't believe people have been wearing this shit for a year and a half now. Craziness, especially, having had COVID, last month, earlier in the month, about the first week or two of August. I was like telling everybody, that will listen, it's like, for me, it felt like a body level up. It felt like a purge, more than anything. And it was like, would I want to do it again? No, because there is some like, fear and hysteria that goes along with it. Even though, me personally, I've been so unplugged from, as soon as 2 weeks to flatten the curve came out, it's like, nope. Yeah, it's like not falling for this shit, not biting on this at all. And that comes from 20 years of watching these narratives develop and how they just create these illusions and spells on people. It's like, people that are not even involved in like, but they become involved because they feel like, and just seeing these narratives, how they've developed over time, and how full of shit they are. And, I went to college for media and public communication, and then in my music career, really focusing on the publishing side of music, and so seeing how licensing and placements happen and stuff like that. It's so, I don't, partly it's the people, the audience really that continues to buy the narratives. That's really needs to take responsibility for what they're consuming in their mental diet, including myself. I'm not just like reading books and not doing that. I spend a lot of time, when working, listening to audiobooks or just podcasts that are, people that I find either funny or have an energy that I like. I've been really kind of like steering away from like spiritual people, mainly because it's like once you really grasp like the law of assumption and how you embody the state that you're seeking to experience first, and then just allowing consciousness, God, the universe, whatever label. I don't think our Creator gets hung up on words, considering I think it's more of an egoic kind of behavior to get, I define words this way, and I'm going to battle you over the rightness of the words, even though it's just they're symbols. And so with symbols, it's like that's always up for an interpretation if you aren't defining these things before you start. That was like the one thing about like college when I was like a student or whatever, and have to write these research papers or read papers that were kind of like higher tier audience level things. So it's like you see like the cable news networks is just being like WWE for information. When you get like maybe peer-reviewed studies and stuff where it's a lot more rhetoric and just like a lot of business, I wouldn't say business words, but like industry specific language. A lot of times in like some of these studies, they will define what they mean these things are in like the beginning part of the papers, and I always kind of appreciate that, because then it's like, oh, when this person's saying, I don't know, it's hard to make up something off the top. I don't know, what was a good, synergy. Is like one of those words. It's like, what do you mean by synergy? What does that mean? Because it means different things to different people. If you're like in an office setting, it might mean, we're all cohesively working towards something, but dude, we're just making shit up. Everybody's just making shit up on some level. I try to break things down as simple as possible, because even when I try to do that, having had employees now, it feels like there's a serious breakdown in communication that's going on with people, where it's like you say something, and like the message that you're trying to convey through your words is not being received at all. It's almost like there's just, I don't know if it's a veil thing, or if there's just people I don't know, just not being competent thing, or living in their own bubble thing. Maybe a Yanny Laurel thing. It's hard to even understand it, because it's so common, that I've experienced at least, where it's just like, oh, the sky's blue. Repeat that back to me, and they're like, dirt's brown. it's like what? How did you hear that when I said? Now, I had to get to a point with some like where I was just texting things to them, so I can like pull the phone up and be like, hey, when I told you the sky is blue, and I want you to look at it, and you hand me a pile of dirt and say dirt's brown, look. You see where I said, did I say dirt on here? And they look at it, I was like, oh, I don't know what happened. It's like, figure it out, dude. It's like, if this is like a survival thing, if this was out in nature, man, dead weight. Serious dead weight. I feel like that with like a lot of people at times. And this could be just my own lens of distortion, where it's just like, yeah, man, if it wasn't for cities and just people being like taking care of the weak parts of society, a lot of you guys wouldn't make it. It's just like you aren't able to take care of yourselves, like any herd. Like if there's like a herd situation where it's like, what are you doing for the herd? Just like nothing, or maybe providing an easy pickings for a predator. maybe that's what's going on. Who knows? It's like, I don't know. I get into these things with like watching nature and watching animals. As somebody who's not it's weird because like there for a while I felt like I was almost under this like civilization spell. I always like looked at like native tribes and stuff and like the Amazon and Papua New Guinea and stuff, and trying to put my head in that kind of space. I was always into anthropology, in college, the study of groups of people, and like somewhat sociology, which is more like gangs, like anthropology is like a broad group of people. Sociology, I feel like I'm saying these words wrong, but like, that's more of like cliques and gangs and like sects and cults and stuff like that. Then you have like psychology, which is like the individual, just studying people. I've always been into like people, like watching and like kind of watching how things play out and almost like narrating it on some level, kind of like a National Geographic for people. And it's like, oh look, the beta male is trying to coerce this female into mating through deceptive practices, trying to hit the friends. Oh, I'm gonna be their friend until they get drunk, then I'm gonna try to make my move. It's just like, but at the same time, with everything that's unfolded in the past, since COVID, just looking at how society's kind of breaking down on some level, which, I don't feel like is a bad thing, because so many people are just been mesmerized by these organizations, these groups, these agencies and shit. It's like, you are putting way too much trust into these things. It doesn't make any sense. It's like if you were out in nature, like in a tribe, and that was like, kind of getting back to like studying people like that. I always kind of like felt like they got something figured out. Where it's like, oh, you don't have all these like little bullshit regulations, these little social norms and stuff, and even broader sense, these governments where it's just like obvious mental manipulation. And not even, I was listening to a guy that was like kind of defending that as like a good thing to like create some cohesiveness amongst, because you're starting to see like kind of the reverse happen where like red states and blue states are kind of just separating themselves, and even in those states, like where you have like bigger city kind of mentality versus more rural aspects, kind of separating more and more. So not to say that that's always going to be that way, but definitely can see that observably now, at least in my area where I was just in. I had to make a trip to a bigger city. It's about 40 minutes north. They got about 250,000 people that live there. So it's not super small, but compared to like New York or L.A. or any of that kind of stuff, I mean it's not the same. But like there's still aspects of similarities, I guess, but like I went there, and I tend to forget like the pandemic's even real for people still, because it's so far removed from my day to day, being like a boss or whatever, or a business creator. It's just like I don't have that pressure of like, oh, are you gonna get the vax, are you gonna do this? It's like, I just do me, I guess, but like, but I have sympathy, I guess, for some people that are having to deal with that, but not as much as you would think, because like a lot of these places, there's like, you're already miserable at that job. Stop being such a pussy and just, either quit or do something different with your life. It's like, are you really satisfied doing, some of these, moving numbers around on a screen? I mean, it's like, does that feel fulfilling? Or does that just feel like you're just in a prison getting your energy drained in this vampiric type beast system? It's like, maybe it sucks because you're working for the beast. You ever thought of that? It's like, maybe it's time to leave that. It could be the best thing that's ever happened to you. More than likely will be, because it'll get your priorities right. Because at least that's what I experienced. When I kind of got spit out of the world in, I don't know, 2016. So was that 5 years ago, 6 years ago? That was like a whole nother thing. But like, I'm really happy that it happened that way, because it's led to this understanding, and my faith has grown a lot. On paper, I've had the best year ever. and really I kind of feel like that anyway. I feel a lot of contentment. Not really. Mm, if I only had this and this, then I could be happy. It's like, yeah, I'd like to grow into more things, but like, not when I catch myself doing that, it's like, oh, if I only had this, or oh, it must be nice, or any of these types of whatever comparison things. It's like, instead of like looking at that as like, oh, that person has that and I can never achieve that. It's like seeing that as like, oh, well, that person can do it, so I could do it too. If that person has this, then I could have that if I wanted to, if I wanted to pursue that. And there's like a freedom to that, because when you really put your faith that, oh, God provides all that anyway, even if that person isn't really that aware of it, because a lot of these inward projecting out is just like running on autopilot. It's like if your parents were really good at one aspect of things and they put that mindset into you, it might be, things might flow a lot more easily. Like, for me, my dad, he was an entrepreneur. And my mom, she was also like, she was owned rental properties and stuff like that after they got divorced, and moving towards when they got divorced. So they were both like kind of doing their own thing. And so for me, it's a lot easier maybe for just going, oh, well, I'm just going to just do a business and, make my own money and stuff like that, compared to maybe somebody whose parents like really bred it into you. It's like, well, you got to show up and you got to please the boss, and you got to, and give you this outline to be an employee mindset, which I don't really feel like there's anything really super wrong with that, but yeah, I think it just kind of depends on how you're looking at it. Because there's been times I've like fantasized about just like letting go of everything and just like getting like a job in a factory or something easy. And not to say factory work is necessarily easy. Sometimes it's a gigantic pain in the ass. But like, doing like maintenance or something maybe. I got offered a job one time at the pretzel factory here in town doing maintenance, and I think they're gonna pay like $18 an hour to me, something like that, starting off, and it maxed out at about like $26 or $27 after you moved up the ranks. So so I was like, that would be so easy to just not have to just to show up and be around people, because like part of this thing for me is like being around people in general. Is just like I don't see a big benefit in like being around other guys. It's just like, unless we're like building something together, like a house or like doing a job, it's like, why do you think I want to just hang out and do what? Just talk? Talk about what? Your problems? It's like, I'm not going to tell you my problems. It's like, oh, let's hang out for 2 hours, drink tea and talk about problems. So I just don't think that, like, I just don't need that, I guess. It's just, maybe some guys do. I just don't. It's just like, yeah, I just, a lot of time, having raised, girls and like, being married, it's like, at one point, I was like in a house with like four women, and so, a lot of times, I'd look at guys as like threats, like, for that reason. It's just like, am I going to have to maybe stab you? It's like, like thinking about things like that might not be the most healthy thing, but it's like kind of, I almost feels natural, but like, so I don't really fight it all that much. And like, I don't want, I definitely do not want, some strange guys over here thinking that they can be disrespectful, especially to me. Yeah, without something happening, have that some sort of a consequence, for that, but like, it's never really been an issue. I did have an issue one time with one of my neighbors, where he had just gotten out of prison, and so I kind of handled that situation with something that he'd be more familiar with. I threatened to fucking stab him and kick his ass, and it became a really big ordeal. Which eventually led to him coming over and apologizing and trying to be nice to me. And it kind of resolved the problem, but for maybe somebody with a different mentality, probably wouldn't have come that hard at it. It was just like, sometimes people that are used to that kind of, boom, that kind of, instant getting checked, sometimes they need that, or they'll just keep boundary pushing and stepping over this thing, and they'll eventually take advantage of you. At least that's what I've experienced. That might not be real, but that's kind of what I've experienced. Is predatory people, and dealing with predatory people, like a prey animal does not work. It just kind of just triggers more of a prey response. It's like, oh, now you're running. Okay, I'm just gonna chase you then. And so, and you really start noticing that, for one, it becomes obvious like over time. But if you like keep track of your energy and see how your interactions with people are either draining or adding energy to you, most of the time it's draining. And like if it's draining and it's just the same person every single time, even if they're unconsciously doing that, I think it's important to kind of put a stop to that. And yeah, and I don't feel like that's being unloving. I feel like the loving thing to do is to have them realize that the source for their happiness, joy, and peace is within them, and to stop sitting here vamping off other people's energy. I feel like it's really selfish to do that, and at the same time, a cycle that they might not be consciously aware that they're doing. And a lot of times when you bring something to somebody's attention when they're doing it unconsciously, it might trigger, them acting like a child or something like that, throwing a tantrum. But the thing of it is it's all of a sudden put into their mind that they have to either address this. And if they do address it, a lot of times it's beneficial over the course of the next couple of days. But if they just choose to, disregard it, then it almost makes them double down on being unconscious about it. And it gets to a point where it's like, I feel like everybody that hits your radar and has an interaction with you is drawn, and it's meant to be on some level. But it's also an opportunity to express who you are in a situation. It's like, are you a doormat? Or are you a bitch that's just going to just all of a sudden follow this person off a cliff? Or are you going to kind of stand your ground and kind of deal with this as it presents itself? Because a lot of times, like the drama that you tell yourself about confrontations and maybe telling somebody no, or that's not going to happen, is worse than the actual event. Because when you actually start doing it, when you and this is when you're dealing with somebody who's habitually boundary pushing, where they'll challenge you, they'll shit test you really quick. If you've been kind of a doormat for, I don't know, months, most of their experience with you, and now all of a sudden now you want to set a boundary, they're going to try to challenge you to on some level maybe keep dominance, and also not to fuck up their what they're used to too. But the thing of it is as you start doing it, you get more and more confidence, and it gets to a point. It's like, listen, I don't need to be around you. I don't need to talk to you. I don't need anything from you or want to be around you at all. So I don't care if you're mad at me or don't like me or any of that. It means nothing to me. And sorry, but like, I might be on kind of a tangent today, but the thing of it is, it's like, the more, but just be honest, because if you honestly feel that way, you're doing yourself a disservice then too, because we're all connected, and so when these opportunities get drawn to you, instead of looking at it like you're some victim and like, oh, these predatory people are just out to get me, look at it as an opportunity to, maybe the old you was like that, just being able to be taken advantage of, and knowing, people taking your energy, not giving you anything in return, or just taking your stuff and not, giving it back, or, constantly needing something from you or wanting something from you, or thinking that oh, this must be my savior. So, hey, can you give me a ride here? Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Can you help me over here? Can you help me can you wipe my ass for me? Can you, it's like, fuck off. How are you an adult? Figure it out for yourself. What are you, a child? But the thing of it is the more, that you're able to kind of stand your ground and do that, without getting triggered yourself, because that's the other end of it, is like sometimes when you get these interactions, you can start spinning out. But like look at it more as like a challenge that you can and will overcome, because it's a part of you on some level too. In this weird way, you know, we're all mirroring these different aspects to ourselves, and so when you start seeing behaviors in others, you know, I see these things in others all the time, and a lot of times I get annoyed and triggered by them. And it's just like, why don't you fill in the blank? But then it's like, well, I gotta really stop. And it's like, well, if I am I doing that on any type of level right now too? Yeah, sometimes, most of the time, it's yes. And then it's easier to maybe have a little bit more compassion. But then it's also easier for you to take that information, process it, and apply it. Because if you're not applying things, you're just living in autopilot. Like, you might as well just be an automaton. If you're not applying anything new and you're just living out the past over and over and over again. And that's the problem that a lot of adults get into, these feedback loops. They build this nice little prison for themselves where they don't do anything new. They shelve their desires. They all of a sudden become somebody else's puppet. They take themselves out of the equation. They have they take no responsibility. It's like, oh, with like this vax, it's like, oh, well, I'm getting so pressured into doing it. It's like, it's you have free will. You have consent. No one's going to put anything in you unless you decide, okay, I'll just do it. Because, and that's the problem with dealing with predators, is like, oh, if I just behave in this way, then they'll stop. Nope. And that's part of, you're a good person and you can't see that this is a predatory thing. Which, decent people would stop, but predatory people, no, it's like, oh, okay, now you need to do this. Now you need to do that. Now you need to obey this. It doesn't stop. It only just continues to escalate. And then all of a sudden you're losing yourself, because now all of a sudden you're obeying this external government, gang, employer, the culture, this outside, force. Oh, I don't want to say something because I might trigger some brain dead person into calling me a name. It's like, look around. Like, half the people that in my area at least, it's like half the people are just incompetent, it seems like, and it's just like D minus, it's just like, sorry. I mean, it's just observable things. I'm sure they're great people in their own special ways, but like when it comes to just, some of this stuff is just like, really? It's like, I'm so tired of people that parrot whatever they hear and feel smart or smug because but I think that's a big part of like our education system here in the United States, is like, not really having critical thinking, but more so just regurgitate the scripts. It's like, oh, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Give me an A. Here's your sticker. Good job. You're super smart. and it doesn't go any deeper than that of like, oh, why, what was he trying to, what was going on with that? Where did he land? In the Caribbean, or you just start asking more whys, and you find out most of the stuff they teach you as such as authority is just like gray area at best. Worse, is just like wrong theory. It's like, no, we'll teach you materialism, even though that doesn't hold up with quantum science and observable testing. It's just like that's like one of my big issues when it comes to like a lot of the scientism and shit, is just like so much of it is theory land and math, and it's like I don't know, I feel like it's so easy to manipulate those things, especially when you have the ability to fund the studies. So it's like science says, it's just like, what does that even mean? Who you talking? What scientist did you say you are you believing? One that's paid by big pharma? Because big pharma's scientists used to say cigarettes were good for you and not habit forming, addictive, or unhealthy. Yeah, so it's like you don't. It's weird to me that people don't learn from history, especially adults. Because I can see like maybe like a 20 something, being like falling for this shit. But you're talking 50-year-olds. It's just like have you been around? Didn't see through 9/11. Didn't see through space. Didn't see through. It has to be veils or something, or just people. Just, I think a lot of it has to do with morality, and the amount of fear people are living in, because that seems to be the biggest, puppet string is fear, and then problem, reaction, solution to that fear, which all of a sudden starts spinning you further down the rabbit hole. It gets you further down this way. The more you follow that, the further it takes you away from love, which is actually what you want to experience. It's funny when you I'm gonna say it's funny, but there's an irony to it that's funny. I find it funny at least, and so I just want to get on here and kind of ramble a bit and share what's kind of been going on in my space. The chickens, they're doing good. I might really kind of figure out why I've only gotten a couple eggs. I was hoping to have a lot more eggs by now, which I don't know if it's because we got rid of the rooster, because like I live in town, and then where I live you can have chickens and stuff in town as long as like the rooster isn't just fucking being obnoxious and pissing off the neighbors, or like in my chicken I could probably squeeze a ton of chickens in there. It's a pretty big chicken coop, and like the problem then would be like hygiene and smells and bugs and whatever becoming an issue. And so as long as they're not being disruptive, and my neighbors seem to be fine with them, it kind of puts people in a different kind of state of being when there's turkeys and chickens and shit running around, especially like because I live next to a bunch of trailers and they can't have any of that stuff. And so I got a fire pit outside where I have, pretty big fires at times. And you can see how it just draws people's attention, just a fire, smoke, and the smells, and kind of connects you with nature in the same way. But it's like, kind of like going full circle back to like living in like rainforest tribes and stuff like that. I started changing my mindset of like, okay, well, if I lived in nature, I do live in nature. So what's really valuable in nature? If I was out in the woods, and it was like that really, I think it was Family Guy. Pretty sure it's Family Guy, where they're like they were mad at the government, and like they took the mayor out of town, and he's like, okay, well, what do we need? And he basically describes the exact government they already had. Oh, we'll provide a system of blah, and they go in this big tirade of like things that they want. The existing government was already doing that, but they got mad at the government, so they took the mayor out, and then they reelected him because he knew what he was doing at the end. It was like really funny, but like it reminds me of that. Like, well, if I was out in nature, and just like in survival mode, I'd like to have a shelter, water, and then I start looking around. It's like, man, I already have a really nice shelter in my house. I got a 2-story house, it's like plenty of space, I don't even go upstairs, hardly ever, that was mostly, my stepdaughters were up there, but, I don't ever go up there, but like, but then I start looking around, it's like, well, if I was out in nature, what would be abundant in nature, to have instead of like this fiat currency, it's like, well, food, pretty much is like the wealth of, the animal kingdom. It's like you got abundant amount of food. I mean, you're like a rich guy. It's like and so I was like I started changing my perception of like where I was living based on like, I'm basically out here, living free, basically is kind of what the goal was. That was like the fantasy. What that fantasy actually meant is just living free, and like and so having like moved in that direction where it's like now it's like kind of look around, it's like, oh, I got abundant amount of like jobs, and so much abundance, I get hired help, and yeah, and then I'm able to, do all these other things with that, and but the mindset is not like I'm a citizen in a town, but it's just like more like I'm just living in in nature, really, being more harmonious, and not, it's funny how people's mindsets about things, it's always like that people equal shit mindset of like, oh, people are doing this and people are doing that, but it's like, stop excluding yourself from nature like you aren't a part of it on some level. It's like there's these ants that live in like the rainforest, where they're like leaf cutter ants, and like they take the leaves from the trees and they put so much of this leaf biomatter in the ground, from bringing it from the trees to their colonies and stuff, that it just like does a huge fertilizing thing in the soil and everything. But it's almost like if one of those ants would be like, look at all these leaves we're bringing into the dirt. You guys are polluting the ground, and you're poison. It's like, stop thinking everything you're doing is wrong and like you're a burden to the planet. It's like we're all connected in this planet, this realm, whatever you want to call this holographic projection. But like stop feeling guilt and shame for I don't know, being part of nature. Being part of it's like I was driving down the road and there's like a big section of this woods that just, this is the ash borer. I don't know if it's a parasite that's affecting these trees, but it just kills them. And you look and there's just like all these dead trees, and it's like, oh well, that's a shame. But there's so many different animals, and it will occupy that space and like turn that into something. I mean, it's like, it's crazy how when you really start watching nature, how everything just recycles and reuses, and what we think is like as a tragedy is like, all it's like a perfect scenario for certain animal. It's just kind of interesting to look at things through that lens. I think it might be hard, if you live in a city, unless you like go out into nature to connect with it. Even though even in that city you're never lost that connection, you're still in the world of creation, but it might become veiled with all the concrete and the stoplights and the fucking annoying people and like the addicts and the people that are dangerous possibly, or just seem crazy. It's just, or sketchy. Just that unease, from just being around. So it's like prison like, almost, where it's just you're super sold on this illusion that the system will protect you from people, even though a lot of that's an illusion. I mean, it's like you're really hoping police get there fast. I've had a situation where I called the police and they told me they can't help. They're not even gonna send anybody out. It's like, what? It's like, someone's breaking into my car right now and you're too busy. That's fucking crazy. I lived in a real sketchy part of town when that happened, where it was like, I didn't realize if you called 911, the cops wouldn't show up sometime. They had no problem banging on my door with search warrants and looking for suspected people of things, but that, when there's actually a situation where it's like, hey, can you actually help me? There's an active crime going on. Oh, sorry, we're running a drill and we don't have any available police. It's like, oh, well, thanks for nothing. I also had a similar situation where I was in this apartment, kind of a sketchy thing too, but like this drunk dude kept banging on my door, thinking that somebody, like some old tenant lived there. It's like, dude, that guy moved out. They don't live here anymore. And this guy having multiple, it was like 3 or 4 times this guy kept banging on my door, like not little taps, but like boom, boom, boom. And I ended up getting my shotgun out, loaded it. I mean, I was like, it was pretty intense, but like ended up going down the steps, and I told my neighbor, who was also, he's a pretty intense guy too, what happened, and he's just like, man, I would have just shoved his drunk ass down the steps. If anyone had asked, he just said he fell. It's like, yeah, I didn't want to kill the guy, I mean, the steps were pretty steep, but my neighbor was pretty intense though. But yeah, other than that, I think I'm gonna bounce. Yeah, a little update about the chickens and all that. It seems like the turkey's starting to gobble more, which seems to be helpful. And the birds that have been pecking at him, I was trying to get him to gobble. I was like making that noise, and like when the chickens were pecking at him, I'd make a gobble noise and then chase the chickens away. Sometimes I'd kick the chickens, to kind of be aggressive towards them. I mean, if they're gonna, you know, you respond to animal behavior, I'm gonna act like an alpha animal towards them, so that they get it. It's like I'm gonna sit there and have like a you suck meeting with the chickens. They wouldn't comprehend that, but they do comprehend immediately as they're doing something to stop when you check them. And people can be like that too. But like yeah, but now all of a sudden the turkey's kind of gobbling, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why I'm so fascinated with this turkey. I feel like I'm really sabotaging myself at times when it comes to I'm gonna have to kill and eat this turkey in like 2 months, and so I don't know why I'm like drawn to it. I think part of it is like I tried to not be drawn to it and just not think about it at all, but then I think the opposite then started to happen, where now it's like I kind of dig his personality. He's kind of a cool consciousness. He's not the smartest bird in the world, but like yeah, I don't know, something about him, but I don't feel any of that like towards the ducks. I don't plan on really eating the ducks. The ducks are kind of dirty animals, and I've never eaten a duck, never really wanted to. Especially when I have like all these chickens, which I don't plan on really eating the chickens unless they just don't keep, unless they don't lay eggs. If they don't eat eggs, then I told my wife, it was like, I really don't have a problem with killing the chickens and eating them, because I've already done that. The turkey is a different thing because it's so much bigger, and it's just like, I don't know why it's different, but it's almost like fishing then too, because I don't really feel bad about the fish. This is partly because it's like these things, they bit on the hook because they were trying to kill and eat something themselves, and they fell for it. I mean, they got trying to get something else. So it's like I don't really feel that. I don't want to like swallow a hook and just like suffer or anything, but like the act of fishing and stuff, like it's getting windy, but like yeah, I think I'm gonna bounce, and so hopefully I didn't trigger too many people. But with that being said, I do appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. I also appreciate your support. I put it to good use for sure, and I definitely appreciate you guys sharing your abundance with me on that. It doesn't mean you have to, but if you need music or anything for your YouTube channels, you're making truth videos, feel free to hit up my SoundCloud, and if you can download the track, you can use it for free. And I don't care if you monetize your videos or anything. If you want to put like a little credit or something, that'd be cool, but you don't even need to do that. Another now until the next now. I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention. Just just focus your mental diets and things that inwardly feel good. Stop inundating your consciousness with like Satan and evil and the they and worst case scenarios. And this is mainly like maybe the truth community that gets in these rabbit holes, which I was in those rabbit holes, so I have a lot more sympathy towards people in the truth community than I do to the people that are just unconsciously just now kind of just waking up to like the news isn't real. It's like, man, we got like 20 years before we can kind of really have a real conversation. But like for the ones that have been inundated with this shit, it's like there is something different. You don't have to continuously live in this paradigm. Most of it's just spells and illusions. All of it really is an illusion, because the only thing in fact that is real is love. And but you got to kind of break through the veil by facing your own fears and growing your faith with God as you face the fears. And I hear a lot of like maybe true community people that understand that God is love, but it's like, oh, I don't understand or vibe with fear God and that aspect of things. Like, you already fear God, so it's like, instead of like pretending that you aren't, take that fear to God so God can cast out the fear. So definitely think about that, unpack that a little bit. Don't just take my word for it. And the truth is within you. So go within, seek, ask. You'll get answers. So, with that being said, thanks everybody for listening. Have a good rest of your now, and God bless.